Welcome, everyone. My name is Steve Stein, and I'm the host of Wisdom Feed Plus, creator of Wisdom Feed Plus and Wisdom Feed. And this, welcome, everyone. And this is our monthly session, community session. And this month, given what's going on in the world, we're focusing in on coping in times of war, coping with stress. That's the title of it, but we're just going to go over it in broad terms with our good friend Jodi Baretz. And so we'll be dealing with strategies for dealing with stress and trauma. And Jodi Baretz is the author of Mindful is the New Skinny, and she's a great trainer on the Wisdom Feed platform, and so glad to have you on board today. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you, Steve.
Awesome. So while it's not necessarily a pleasant topic to talk about, it's everywhere. And so to me, I'm finding emotions that I haven't dealt with since the pandemic. In whatever side you were on of masking or vaccinating, those passions are rising, and there's trauma and there's real, challenges going on. So
Well, let's just talk about, you bring up the pandemic, right? So the pandemic is like a collective anxiety and fear that we're all sharing. And just like this situation with wars breaking out, even though it's on other sides of the world, it still affects us. I mean, first it started with Ukraine, and then it started with Israel and Gaza. Who knows where it's going to go? Many people know people who are directly affected by this. I think it hit close to home for a lot of people. And, a lot of people are sons and daughters of Holocaust survivors, and it's re-triggering trauma for them with all the anti-Semitism that's rising, and also anti-Muslim sentiments that are rising. I mean, I think that hatred, obviously, in all forms, needs to be condemned. And, things are breaking out on college campuses. It's just a scary time to be in the world. No matter what side you're on, the violence is what's scary. And even in Congress, we have a culture of anybody who doesn't agree with you, there's a threat of violence, in some circumstances.
And the threat of being canceled.
The threat of being canceled.
And, we've seen over the last few years, people's whole careers getting canceled, justly or unjustly. I'm not even judging it, but these are new kind of existential, pervasive. And I think, so we started Wisdom Feed Plus because of kind of as an antidote to the constant stressors of environment, of, and always going back to our kind of raison d'etre is taking ancient ideas down to street level, but finding practical tools to cope in a world that just doesn't let up. So, and now other layers. So what's the dynamic of stress there's stress and you need to recover, but if you don't have a chance to recover, it's just bad.
Yeah. Well, stress is really, listen, lots of people handle stress differently. You and I could, be exposed to the same stressors, but when stress becomes a problem, when it becomes overwhelming, when it's bigger than your capacity to deal with it, that's when it becomes a problem. So you might have more of a capacity to deal with it than I do. So everybody kind of manages, has a different level of what stresses that they can handle and what they can't. So it's not necessarily universal. People have, much more tolerance for certain stressors than other people. based on a lot of different things, brain chemistry, gut health. Now they're finding that, certain genes promote, in your gut, like the MTFR gene or MTHFR, that gene, is being known to create social anxiety. And if your gut isn't moving properly, the way it's supposed to, and you have this gene mutation, it can affect your anxiety levels. So we don't necessarily, and based on your past trauma, there's so many factors going into how you deal with anxiety. Most of which is being, brain chemistry and coping mechanisms. But when we have a trauma such as this, a collective trauma, we're all sort of feeling it together, which I guess in a way can be comforting. But not only do we have to deal with the fear, anger, worry, helplessness, grief, but we also have to carry on with our daily lives. So how do you set those boundaries for yourself, and how can you do your regularly scheduled program, and also be able to deal and not bury all the other things that are real to you and that you're feeling.
And what you say you're regular, how could I put it? When TV comes on, and usually it's times of they don't usually come on the TV breaking news. It's the sun came out and it's 70. It's trauma. So you're regularly and it is programming. So if you think about mindfulness, we can go through the day and miss the day, but that's when things are normal, or just that's human nature. But regularly scheduled programming, I mean, I'm personally affected. Thank God everyone's healthy in my world, but I'm not sleeping. I mean, my sleep now, it's really, you talk about 24-hour news cycle. Now it's 24-second news cycle. And it's like whiplash. And, but the good news is Jodi's here and we have Wisdom Feed Plus. That's our mission, is to come up with practical solutions that, I'm from New York, I'm from Brooklyn. So I always put through the filter, what would the boys from Brooklyn, would they roll their eyes with this solution? But one thing I love about Jodi, she's practical, she speaks, she's evidence-based, but she has usually practical ideas and solutions. So what do you got?
Well, I just want to mention the sleep thing, because I think that's a huge thing for many people right now, is like an inability to turn it off. So sleep is not determined necessarily by how tired you are, right? We could be exhausted and not be able to sleep, or wake up many times during the night. And I think, and I believe, and what I've seen and studied and researched, is that sleep is sort of directly correlated with your ability to calm your mind, which is directly tied into what you do here, Steve, in meditation. If we can't turn our minds off, we can't sleep. So we have this constant, tape or thoughts that are going through our minds, the monkey mind, right? So we constantly have this, and if we don't have the tools to kind of shut it down, we might not be able to sleep, so we kind of have to gain control of that. But it's really hard when you're being hit with so many stressors and worry and grief. It's like, how much can we tolerate? We talked about that, like how much we can tolerate, like how much can we really tolerate? And listen, we're safe, right? I mean, for the time being right now, but, think about all the people who are directly affected by all of this war and, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim sentiment, like hatred, hate crimes. I read somewhere that hate crimes have gone up 400% since this war started, specifically anti-Semitism. So, the world is a very scary place. So, I guess, how do you draw a line? For me, this is the hardest thing, right? When we talk about the news, like, how much do I want to know? and how much can I stay in my bubble to keep myself alive and functioning and, not breaking down. Because as a therapist, all day, I'm also hearing everybody's struggles, so I have that on me on top of all of that other stuff. So it's really important for me specifically to learn how to set those boundaries. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Some ways that we can, cope with the amount of stress and fear and anxiety and anger and worry and helplessness and grief. I could go on and on about how many things, that we're dealing with now collectively, which we really haven't dealt with for a really long time. If in our lifetimes, maybe not at all. So it's very, very scary out there. So we can go over that.
That
If that's
sounds
helpful.
good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So when we talk about strategies, we talk about, things, things you could do where you don't have to be on vacation in Florida or Hawaii or wherever. Things that you could do, I don't want to use it, things that you could do in everyday life. So
right, not to escape, right? We're not doing it to escape. We're doing it to manage and to have, to be healthy. So it's not, because in mindfulness, we don't really escape things, right? We're not trying to push anything away. We're being with what is. We're not judging it. We're allowing, ourselves to feel the way we feel, which is really important. We can't just keep shoving it down, because when we shove it down, it stays, it festers, and it pops back up, maybe in an outburst or maybe in a complete breakdown. So we have to deal with the feelings that we're dealing with. And many people, when we each have a window of tolerance in which we feel, how it's how we can cope with the stressors in our lives, how we respond to some sort of trauma response.
And when
right?
you say shoving it down, it's escaping with some kind of self-medication, I think, or something like that, or some unhealthy habits with food or
Alcohol.
What's that?
Alcohol.
Sure. What else you got?
Yeah. Food and alcohol, I think, are, a big one, or some kind of, pill that we need to take to calm our nerves. And if we do have an anxiety disorder or it's out of control, I'm not against that. I'm not saying that that's not dignified, necessary. But, we want to manage our stress in healthy ways that isn't going to stay with us for a long time and become sort of a PTSD in the future. So let me just start by saying, when the stress or the trauma becomes overwhelming, we often respond with either hyper arousal or hypo arousal. So that's, something to consider, right? Like, maybe people can ask themselves, when I experience, deep stress or trauma, am I hyper aroused or hypo aroused? And hyper arousal is characterized by anxiety, anger, feeling overwhelmed, which can lead to attacks, blaming, insults, or running away from the situation. It's just like you can't handle it. You get totally triggered and you're just, overstimulated, hyper aroused.
Okay.
And then hypoarousal response, on the other hand, is the frozen response, where you zone out, feel empty, become numb. The body shuts down in avoidance of dealing with the trauma. And that's kind of like what we resist persists. So either one, the hyper or the hypo, you don't want to necessarily be on the extremes of that.
So would binge watching something fall into that category, or like just
I mean, I guess it's a way of numbing a little bit. I don't think it's a hyper arousal.
That's what I was
I
thinking,
think it
right?
would be more of a hypo arousal, just kind of avoiding a little bit of dealing with the trauma, which is okay because even, John Kabat-Zinn and all the, mindful way through depression, that kind of stuff. It's like when you're just absorbing too much, like meditation can sometimes be, overstimulating because you have no defenses. You're just feeling it all. And that can get you into a state of hyper arousal because it's like if you're quiet and you're feeling everything and it's too much and it's too overwhelming, they don't necessarily recommend, long meditations. Maybe a short breathing exercise where you kind of dip into it and dip out of it because it can be too much. It actually sensitizes you to the world, right? It can be overstimulating and sensitizing. So that's really important. So, meditation is a great tool. I don't know how I got to that from your binge watching statement, but basically, you don't want to be hyper aroused and too quiet and feeling everything. But what you want to do is maybe feel it and then, binge a little Netflix to
I'm
help
not sure.
you
I'm not sure how
refresh.
we got there either, but it's not necessarily binging. But I noticed that we'll watch the news, and then we'll have to stream a program that we're watching just to kind of turn
Yeah.
that off. I guess mindfulness. We generally, if we when we meditate more in the morning, I'm sure we have this great program with Ashley Barron, Yoga Nidra practices. That's great for going to sleep. So there are tools for going to sleep, but I just find that's something that I'm using in my life to cope. Okay, so hypo. So I got that. So you have a couple more?
Well, those are, the trauma responses. So that's important
I
to know
see.
if you're on either end of that spectrum. And if you
Okay.
are on either end of that spectrum, that might be a little, reminder to you that you can get help for those things. So if you're hyper aroused or hypo aroused on either end of that spectrum, you might want to get help and talk to somebody, a licensed therapist, a support group, at very least, reach out to a wise friend. You need to get some support if you're on either end of the spectrum there, 100%. But other than that, getting that professional help, we talked about there are things that you can do, which we can talk about. They're pretty basic, they're pretty obvious, but I think we all need reminders of what we can do in this situation. Because when we're in a crisis, we're not always thinking rationally and clearly, and our stress response is going off. So this is kind of like a little reminder of what you can do. And I touched base already on some of them. One of them being seeking social support from your personal, professional, spiritual, and neighborhood communities. So, getting help, whether it's professional or it's reaching out to, friends. So, we don't do that all the time. Oh, we don't always do that. So it's really important to reach out to people, and not hold it in. It's okay. Find somebody that you can rely on and that you think is a good social support. Some people don't have that in their lives, right? Some people don't. I've been finding loneliness and people not having other people to reach out to. The pandemic kind of made that all worse. So while we think that's an obvious one, I don't know if everybody has supports in their personal lives that they can just go to. So finding a meetup group or just making sure you're not isolated and lonely is very important, especially for health and longevity. We know there's studies on social isolation and loneliness. So finding people is important.
And that's part of what our goal here with Wisdom Feed Plus is creating community. And we have a free Facebook group. We have a more in-depth membership. So, and that's who's bringing this recording today. Jodi's been a brilliant contributor. And everything's a damn epidemic now, but loneliness is right up there.
Yes. Loneliness is a big one for sure. Um, and then number two is going to be obvious for this community. It's like preaching to the choir, but tending to your mental health by practicing meditation, mindfulness, and even journaling. You know, journaling is a great technique that not everybody thinks of to do, but it's a good way of getting stuff out, you know, of not holding it in. And I talked about meditation, making sure that you're not overly stimulated by meditation. But mindfulness is always good. Being aware of what's happening without judgment and not beating yourself up about it. Like, wow, I'm really, you know, knocked off kilter by what's going on. What's wrong with me? Why can't I handle it? Or just any kind of negative self-talk. Just being aware of what's going on. Because feelings aren't right, wrong, good or bad, they just are. So allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you need to feel. Shall I go on?
Yeah, I think so. You know, there's themes in the themes, and so journaling and mindfulness, it has to, and you can do those in a group settings as well. So,
Yes.
all right. So, no, this is good though. I think, as you say, everyone needs reminders, and sometimes we're just so in it that we just can't even, take a step back, take a deep breath, take a mindful breath, to
Notice what's going on.
and to be with what is. And yeah, so keep going. Now, this is it's good. It's helpful. I think it's helpful to have, a list of
Reminders, right?
reminders.
Pulling back the lens, seeing what's going on with you. I always talk about don't always write it, don't always believe everything you think, right? We can't, we have our brains, but it's so important to separate ourselves from the thoughts. I always tell my clients, isolate those thoughts that are, destructive to you or that don't serve you, and just be like, oh, there they are again. You don't have to buy into every single thought you have or everything you think. So it's like, oh, okay, here comes that like stress response. I feel it in my body. I know it comes every once in a while. Thank you for coming. I know you're trying to warn me, but I'm not going to buy into it right now. You know what I mean? So it's like having conversations with yourself, noticing what's going on with yourself. A lot of times I have my clients name that part of themselves that they don't like. Or maybe the anxiety. So if a client's name was Sarah, maybe we would call the little part of them Sam that keeps coming in and giving them all the negative thoughts. Or, it's like, all right, Sam, I know you're here. Thanks for coming. But, I'm not playing today. You're not going to, throw me off today.
Just simply labeling it or
Labeling it. Because then it becomes not you. So when you label it, it's like not who you are, it's a part of you that you're choosing to deal with instead of it becoming your own identity. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. And that's kind of based off of internal family systems therapy. And I do a lot of work with that with my clients. So, but it's good to be able to like give people these techniques and hopefully they can use them to not buy into everything that goes on in your brain. So sometimes when I'm trying to sleep and I can't shut my brain off because I'm just like everybody else, even though, I practice as much as I can, sometimes I'll have that bug in my brain that just will not quiet. I try to breathe, I do my techniques, it's still kind of there. So what I do is kind of like, all right, I know you're here. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to tell me, but I'm going to let you just chatter on in the back and I'm going to, focus on my breath or my counting or whatever. It's just like not giving and that really is what meditation and mindfulness is, right? Not paying attention to your thoughts so much. I just take it one step further, becoming an observer of your thoughts instead of being the thinker.
Or instead of going down the rabbit hole, notice that you're going down the rabbit hole and
Right.
take a moment.
And then you become the observer of your thoughts, like you're a reporter just watching. Oh, I notice I can't fall asleep again because here comes the mind, instead of just buying into everything the mind is saying.
Yeah.
So, observer, thinker. I'm digressing, but I like to, fit
No,
in.
that's good context for that.
Good. Okay, so the next one is obvious again to tend to your physical health, exercise, eat well, getting sleep if you can, doing a sleep routine, shutting off the phones, right? Not having that blue light stimulate you so close to bedtime, maybe taking a bath before you go to bed. Making sure you're taking care of yourself by eating the right foods and exercising and not excessive drinking, all of that kind of stuff.
And along those lines, not leaving your phone, not sleeping in the same room with your phone.
Love that.
'Cause
Absolutely.
that's helpful. And the further away, the better. Not your neighbor's house, but if it's downstairs, it's like, I have an impulse. Oh, it's downstairs. Okay.
Right.
Problem
It's
is, then I
so
get up.
easy when you can't sleep to just be like, all right, I'll just, go on my phone for a little while because I can't sleep. And then that really stimulates your brain even more, and further delays your sleeping. But I get it. If you can't sleep, you want something to do. You just want to get out of your own head, right? But that might not be the best option. And I also think sleeping next to your phone with the 5G, they've also, I mean, I don't know the studies on that, but it's not great to sleep with it right next to your head, right?
Mhm.
So that's another thing. Okay, another obvious, take breaks from the news and social media. I'm not so much anymore, but like when I was into Facebook a lot more than I am now, I actually have a limit on my Facebook, after whatever it is, 30 minutes or an hour for the day, which I don't even reach anymore, to be honest. But, I used to at some point. So setting that limit, and it's like, you've reached your limit of Facebook for the day. And I'm like, okay. I usually am like, give me one more minute, because there's a setting for that. Give me 10 more minutes. But yeah, setting limits for yourself and obviously for your children. I mean, my kids are grown. I can't really do that for them anymore. But certainly when you have younger kids, it's so important. And taking, I'll only watch the, certain news program. I'm not going to be just like watching the talking heads speak all night. I'm just going to get my, ABC World News for half hour and that's it, or I'm just going to read some articles in the morning and I'm done. So, limiting these things. I know it sounds silly to put a limit on yourself, but I think it really helps. It's like a boundary for yourself to these addictive, um, you know, social media channels that really can suck you in. Okay. Any thoughts on that, Steve?
It's, I love the Facebook limiter or the Facebook. There used to be apps for it, but now they built it into the iPhone now, or was that a special app that you use?
No, I don't think it was a special. I don't know how I did it, honestly, because I did it so long ago, but it's still on there. So, like on the infrequent days when I reach my limit, I'm like, oh, yeah, I still have this limiter on there. I don't I mean, I'm sorry, I don't even remember how I got it on there. There
No,
might be a way on the Facebook app to say set limits, I'm sure. I think they're putting it right into the system.
and with during the pandemic, but it kind of moved the needle. I think, I had 2 teenagers during the pandemic, and good luck trying to get them to put down their phone. But my younger one, in the middle of, we're Jewish, but he became observant, and he became Shomer Shabbat during the pandemic, and he stayed with it. But from Friday night to Saturday, from Friday night sundown to Saturday night, his phone was away. I mean,
Great.
but the only time he would get in a car even is if it's an important basketball game, because he's a basketball player. But when that happened, that was so good for our family to survive the pandemic, because that morning, all of a sudden, they got the ping pong table out for the first time in a long time. And
Right. It forces you to do other things.
just hearing that analog back and forth. So we have a thing with a section of a course with John Kabat-Zinn on a digital Sabbath, just taking a break from it, and you don't need to be you could, it's not religion specific, but the value is there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so funny because my son also realized that it was so not healthy for him. So every time I text or call him, he's always on, no silent, no notifications, whatever that thing is that comes up, like person is not accepted.
Airplane mode.
I can never even reach him now. So it kind of worked against me in a way, but I made him put me on ring through or whatever. I'm like, you better receive my stuff. But he doesn't answer the phone. None of his friends can reach him. Like he's just kind of checked himself out of all that. And I'm very proud of him. I mean, he makes fun of me if I'm on TikTok or something. He's like really
it's very hypo. Not
yeah,
hypo.
exactly. He just took himself out. So
Interesting.
yeah. Okay. So focus on what you can control. And if you feel like donating to a cause or helping people in your community or, doing something. So you don't have that helpless feeling and you're really not only doing it for the other people, but you're also doing it for you, right? You're doing it for you. So that's really important. That you feel like you're contributing or doing something meaningful. And there's so many different ways you can donate or help, whether it's money or time, it doesn't, matter. It's just, collecting things for people, just getting involved.
We were doing this course with Beryl Bender, and we had this whole longevity course on the blue zones. And one of the, those are pockets in the world where people live to 100. And one of the consistent components is having some kind of community, being involved with people. So that's something, also exercising. I mean, you have some control over. So I like that. Take control
of what you can.
Take
Because
control
there's so much we can't control. So much.
Cool.
So taking control of what you can, for sure. The next one we talked about already, process, don't suppress, allow yourself to experience challenging feelings and emotions, even if they're difficult. Emotions are not going to kill you. I know that we feel like that. I'm actually working with a woman right now who has such intense anxiety and social anxiety that she feels like she needs alcohol, in any social situation to be able to cope with it. And she's like, I'm so afraid of my feelings if I don't have that, and emotions are just energy in motion. They'll come through and they're going to go. You're not going to be in that, unless you're in the major depression or, you have an extreme situation. Most emotions, you can cry, you can be upset, you can feel it, and then you can go have dinner and you're fine. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. But if you're trying so hard to suppress and not feel, that energy is with you all the time. You know what I mean? That's harder than actually feeling it, getting it out, and then moving on. So processing your emotions, and you can do that through your body. Steve, we've done the 4 B's that we've talked about, that I talk about all the time, and the third B is processing emotions, difficult emotions through your body by noticing how a thought makes your heart beat faster, or your palms get sweaty, or your chest get tight, or a pit in your stomach, and noticing those physiological sensations and breathing into them, allowing them to be there, not like, oh no. That's how the panic starts. Just like, okay, as John Kabat-Zinn says, it's already here, let me feel it, right? So allowing yourself and being kind to yourself about it. This is a really challenging time. introducing self-compassion, putting your hand over your heart, like talking to yourself, Jodi, this is a really hard time for you. You know, it's okay to feel these things. Self-compassion.
So, yeah, you actually that was one of the meditations you did in two of the challenges. The
Yeah, my
first time you did
favorite.
the challenge, it was the feedback on that. You know, people had such strong, positive, kind of visceral reactions to that meditation because you know
You don't do it.
you don't do it and you feel guilty doing it or whatever
It's
the
stupid.
the
Right.
mind loop is that
Right. Who does that? Who talks to themselves? It's going to be okay. Nobody. You know what I mean? Like, you don't talk to yourself like that. We're not taught how to do it. We don't, so self-compassion is a learned skill that we have to do on purpose. We're very good at giving compassion for other people, but do we ever do it for ourselves? No. No.
it's a muscle to exercise and
Absolutely.
we're going to do a meditation, I think love and kindness meditation, which kind of talks
Yeah.
to some of that.
Yes, it's a part. Yeah, there's a self-compassion piece in there. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. I want to just summarize and give you my last. It's funny because my last thing is really kind of self-compassion. It's be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and process your feelings of trauma in a way that works for you. So that's kind of my last strategy or tactic, which really employs, it's all the same. Steve, I don't know if you notice this or realize this, but every speaker that you probably have, and every summit that I go to, and every talk that I listen to, it's kind of like all the same stuff, but it's just said in different ways. And I think different people resonate with different teachers, and I think they hear it in certain ways, and some of those ways make actual change for them, and sometimes you can hear somebody talk about it and it doesn't resonate at all. So we talk about the same things. So the most important things, I think, are the self-compassion piece, taking care of yourself, putting that oxygen mask on yourself before you, which is what we're not really taught, especially women who are caregivers and always taking care of everybody else. I help women learn how to care for themselves and not feel selfish and not feel like they're, doing something wrong or guilty. So the self-compassion piece to me is the first thing I do with clients, because if you don't love and care about yourself, you're not really, living to your full capacity. I don't think.
And the flip side for men is we're taught, keep a stiff upper lip.
100%.
You know,
Don't feel your feelings. Don't be sad. Don't cry. Get over it. Toughen up, and I think now,
tough it out. Yeah.
right. I think men
I
need space.
just thinking that kind of like life, that saying, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I think John Lennon used it, but I think it was from Emerson initially. And guys are just kind of programmed, and people, tough it out. Don't wear your heart on your sleeve. Don't be a baby. But you can go through your whole life toughing it out. Like my dad toughed it out. If I take a look at it, he was great. He was fine. And he's a human being. He toughed it out. Very rarely did you, and you talked about talking to yourself. I can, who had that joke? That's just a normal thing in New York when people are talking to themselves down the street. But most of the time it's weird as heck to talk.
But you don't want to do it out loud necessarily, Steve.
Okay, good. That's good.
I'm talking to yourself in your head. You don't want to be walking down the streets of New York talking to yourself like, good job, Jodi. You know what I mean? Like, do it in your head. But it's important.
But it's a tool. It's a tool
to take control of the inner dialogue. Instead of you beat yourself up in there, you certainly can take control of your own thoughts and change them around. It's hard and it feels weird and it feels uncomfortable, but do it. It's powerful and it's amazing. I mean, I literally have practiced this skill so much that, if I'm about to go into a situation that I'm nervous or anxious, I'm like, you got this, Jodi. And I do that. I really talk to myself, and I'm my biggest cheerleader now. And that's enabled me to do like big things, like come on these Zooms and be able to talk to other people and help people. I had to get my own inner dialogue together to be able to do what I do. And I'm sure you as well, to be able to do what you do, need to do that too. We always have insecurities and fears, but to be able to notice that and reprogram.
We have a kind of a new author, new speaker, uh, who was on yesterday. He does like archetype, Jungian psychology and things like that. But he's a big fan of Robert Bly, who a lot of people don't know, but he's kind of carrying the torch forward. But one of the things that just resonated with what you mentioned was Robert Bly talked about mythology. He always told stories. So into commitment, like taking commitment in a man or anyone, saying taking on a big commitment, there's a platoon in your brain of different voices. Like, so the next morning, the sergeant says, like, he talks about someone getting married. They get married, but in the morning, the platoon is like, one guy's, I'm going to screw this up now by doing, so it's, and
Yeah,
then
all
you'll
the different
hijack yourself,
voices.
if you don't watch it.
Yeah, it's like that movie, Inside Out or something, where like all
Okay,
the
right.
different voices, joy and sorrow and this and that. And, and we have all these different parts in us, and it's all okay. But it's just noticing what's happening and then deciding, do I want to be thinking that? Is that thought serving me? Just like observing and getting control of it. And not every thought is going to
And
be positive,
uh,
but
right, and not to be, bring the bar of the conversation really low, but an Animal House,
yeah.
he's got the angel on one shoulder and the
Uh-huh.
devil, John Belushi, and the devil on the other shoulder, and those are voices in our brain that, and it's helpful to laugh at it, but to be able to use, to be mindful of it and make a choice is. And that's where your positive self-talk, I think, is another way of talking about it.
Yeah, it's just a way of rewiring your brain for the positive or for the gratitude, just like we do with gratitude. We got to rewire the neural pathways. And the way that we do that is by saying the same things over and over. Like your thoughts are like mostly the same every day, right? I mean, most of our thoughts are the same ones we've had already. So if we can just change those thoughts, we can reprogram them. And then that's the default thought that you have.
And
Good
John
thought.
Kabat-Zinn, he talks about, doing reps, like
Yeah.
you're in the gym, you meditate enough
Building a
consistently,
muscle.
right? It's easier to access,
Absolutely.
by
Yes.
doing it.
Absolutely. All right. So I think we should do the loving kindness meditation. Do you want to like bring in Scott and see if he has any questions or wants to
Yeah, we could do
contribute?
that.
Or
Scott, you want to come on, say hello, or I don't see any comments. There's a number of people watching on YouTube. You don't have to, Scott, but you're welcome to.
I just figured since he was
All
here,
right.
we could
It's
ask him.
Thank you for asking. Um, I'm just relaxing, listening. It's even though the world is in turmoil, topsy-turvy, hate abounds, I'm feeling pretty calm. But then I was in Sicily for 2 weeks, and that helps. And I've returned. I've gone back to the gym. I think that the other thing for me that goes on with all this, because I've pondered what you've been asking and raising, and I think having gone through 9/11 and being in the World Trade Center, it was as awful an experience as one could have. And so my take is that lucky for us that we're not in the middle of that, and we're not fighting for our lives, being kidnapped and killed. So it's it's different for me in that respect. And I don't know if that makes any sense or just my own feeling entitled or indulged that I just don't worry about this right now. And I do feel bad for the world we live in, though.
And it's also gratitude, counting your blessings, you know.
I think that's accurate. Yes.
And counting your blessings in Sicily sounds good. I would like to do that myself.
Yeah.
But gratitude is a big one. I think that falls in that category.
It's good medicine. You know, we were on a tour for 2 weeks, and it's a far distance. You know, the Israel was just beginning as we were getting ready to leave, and you know, eating Mediterranean diet and olive oil has done more for my intestines and bowel movements than anything else in 56 years of struggling with it. So may not be the nicest topic to share, but it really made humongous difference.
Amazing.
And
Yes.
that's part, yeah, and then that's part of you know, the whole the blue zones, you know, healthy food and olive oil and that kind of stuff is another you know, component to it. All right, Scott. Good to hear from you. I'm glad you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sicily sounds amazing. So, okay, so do you, if there's no other comments or thoughts,
Before we do that, so how can people find you? You know,
how can people, my website is jodibaretz.com, and that's where you can get information about me. The book is Mindful is the New Skinny. It's on Amazon. I think you have my audio meditations, Steve, that you are bundling up for, you know,
like
on your
those are available actually, you know, I think on Audible, Scribd, everywhere that audiobooks are available. And the wonderful trainings that Jodi's done over the past year on Wisdom Feed, we're going to turn into a kind of a master class. So that'll be available soon as well. Okay, Jodi.
I'm looking forward to that. That's exciting. So thank you.
That'll be good stuff. That'll be good stuff.
Yeah. I also have, you know, my specialty is kind of women in midlife and beyond. So I do want to mention, I do have a Facebook group, Mindful Moms in Midlife. If anybody out there wants to look it up on Facebook and join it. And on Instagram, I'm Mindful is the New Skinny. So, yeah, so that's me. And
Excellent.
yeah,
And
I have, but I'll just do one more thing. So I have an individual online psychotherapy practice and coaching practice. And then I also have a women's group for the midlife and above set. That's a small women's group where we discuss all the issues that are coming at us, you know, grief, loss, relationships, hormonal stuff, all of it. So if anybody's interested, they could reach out to me.
That's great. And it's Jodi Baretz, BARETZ.com. And Jodi with the I, well, yes.
JodiBaretz.com. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to get into, thank you, Steve, the loving kindness meditation. I'm going to do it in 10 minutes so we can get off at 3 because I have a client at 3. So we'll do 10 minutes and then I'm going to jump. So the loving kindness meditation, I'll just give a few words about it before we start. It's like a 2,500-year-old practice that basically repeats phrases of goodwill and kindness towards ourselves and other people. There's many different variations of it, but we're going to, you know, all you have to do in this meditation is repeat the words that I say and think them in your head. So I'm just going to guide the whole thing, and all you need to do is close your eyes if you would like, take some breaths, and follow my lead, okay? And we're going to do loving kindness toward ourselves, and then we're going to do it to other people and then the world. And I think it's what we all need in this moment of crisis. And since I only have about 8 minutes, it's going to be kind of like a little shortened version, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so closing your eyes, taking some breaths, relaxing your nervous system, letting everything go. And repeat what I'm saying to yourself in your head. We're going to wish ourselves loving kindness. And you may even want to put a hand over your heart and say to yourself, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. And may I live with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. And may I live with ease. Now I want you to think about someone you love. Just one person, the first person that comes to your mind, and we're going to wish them loving kindness. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. Maybe now you can conjure up somebody that you don't know that well, maybe an acquaintance, maybe a manicurist or dry cleaner, or just somebody that is in your life that you don't know very well. And we're going to wish them loving kindness. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. Now think about somebody that either you have mixed feelings about or really just irritates you, someone that you don't like or you're mixed about. Maybe it's somebody that did something to you that you're angry at them, or maybe just someone in your life that has wronged you or you just don't like them. And this is a hard part, but we're going to wish them loving kindness. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. And I'm going to repeat that one because that's one of the hardest things to do. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. Now let's think about everyone in our country who's struggling in some way, who's affected by the events of what's happening in the world, or is just struggling with their own issues. And let's wish them loving kindness for the whole country. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. And now let's think about everybody in Israel and Gaza, Ukraine, hostages, victims of war on any level. And let's wish them loving kindness. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. Open your eyes when you're ready. And this is something that you can practice often. You can practice it when you wake up, when you go to bed. You can wish loving kindness to anybody. It could be a friend. It could be someone that you don't like. I think that's really the most powerful one. And you can do the whole world, and also just do yourself first, because we need to take care of ourselves first. But this is a powerful meditation that can be used, whenever you're feeling like you need it. And it is something that we can control, how we feel and what we spread out into the world. So hopefully that was helpful.
Jodi, that was great. So I want to thank you and wish you loving kindness and a good rest of the day. A great rest.
Thank you. I wish you loving kindness too, Steve and Scott, and everybody else who's listening to this.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Jodi.
You're welcome, Steve. Thank you.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.